Yo, Ryan, I got a favor to ask.
Yo, what's up?
We've been on the road for hours. Is there any way you could, like, sing a song or something?
I don't know, man. What kind of style, bro?
Can you do, like, in the style of Airplanes, as made famous by Haley Williams from Paramore?
Oh, alright. Onward we'll go on our quest and seek out comfort in the wild. Laying down with fear and shiny chest, push on, oh don't give in. Beyond the hills and streams or the Everglades lies a place, a home away from home. Maybe someday we will get that far. We'll steal their crystals from their homes.
Give me F, give me F, give me F now. Give me F, give me fun fantasy. Give me F, give me F, give me F now. Give me some of that fantasy. Give me F, give me F, give me F now. Give me F, give me fun fantasy. Give me F, give me F, give me F now. Give me shit, how many F's is that? I go from town to town. Haters say I'm on the prowl, but who can blame me? These chicks straight NPC. Ha! I trade them shinies for elixirs. I give up Gilda seeds and pixels. So come over here, girl, and we'll play in 3D.
Hey, what the hell, man?
What?
I thought we were doing like a nice song thing here.
I'm only expressing my feelings, dude.
You just took a shit all over my song.
Just doing my thing for the ladies.
You know there aren't even any chicks here, right?
I think you're forgetting Boko.
I'm pretty sure chocobos don't count.
I would not say that.
Onward we'll go on our quest and seek out comfort in the wild. Laying down with fear and shiny chest, push on, oh don't give in. Traveling like three idiots, our swords and spells are only tools. There you go on another side quest to breed an army of big birds? What the?
Give me F, give me F, give me F now. Give me F, give me fun fantasy. Give me F, give me F, give me F now. Give me some of that fantasy. Give me F, give me F, give me F now. Give me F, give me fun fantasy. Give me F, give me F, give me F now. Give me shit, how many F's is that? You know, you definitely didn't have to call Boko an idiot.
I don't think you can tell.
Trust me, he could tell. Besides, once we get a blue one, we can get a new spell.
How's a Smurf chocobo gonna help at all?
I don't know, maybe they're afraid of bluebirds.
Maybe who is afraid of bluebirds?
Aren't we after some bad guys or something?
I don't know, this plot is too confusing. Onward we'll go on our quest and seek out comfort in the wild. Laying down with fear and shiny chest, push on, oh don't give in. Onward we'll go on our quest and seek out comfort in the wild.
accessible to people through like some type of internal game manual or something to make it more like a classic game.
Yeah.
I don't think they should just lay everything out though, for sure. That would definitely ruin the identity of the game.
And that's absolutely not what he said.
Yeah.
A lot of people criticizing Shad were saying that, and he was like, "That's not what I said." He's like, "I don't want it all to be laid out in front of me." He's like, "I just want a little nugget. I just want a little bit, just enough to understand my character's motivation a bit, and be motivated to find out more." Because he's like, one of the things that his critics said to him was, well, you needed to talk to this NPC to find out this, that, and the other. And he's like, I didn't even know that I was supposed to be finding that out, let alone go talk to, like, I didn't even know what questions to ask, let alone finding the answers. He's like, I didn't even know that lore was a thing.
Yeah.
He's like, how am I supposed to know? And that's why he was like, that's why I quit halfway through, because I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. And I don't know. And I feel the same way. I feel like I should go watch this video by Vati, because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing or why. And he's like, if I just got a little bit, just a tiny bit of lore, tiny bit of this is why you're doing this, just a little, that I'd be more interested in finding the NPCs to get more, and finding and getting myself to the end of the game to find out how it ends.
Yeah.
So I thought it was interesting. And he said, he was like, well, FromSoft has almost admitted that they need to give you more, because in the last patch, they added a new feature where when you enter a new area, it tells you on the screen what NPCs are there in that area to talk to.
Yeah, so one of the reasons why I kind of agree with that, and I'm sure they did too, is because of the scope of this game is different. All of the older like Souls games were open world as it is, but the areas were more confined, right? It was narrow passages. Even in Bloodborne, it was like the city streets. So there were like back alleys. There were a lot of paths. It wasn't like you're just going down a hallway or something in a new game. But it was pretty easy to find where all the people were. That house has a lantern lit so you can talk to the person behind the door or something like that. In this big open space, it might be hard to even think like, okay, how many NPCs are here and where the fuck am I even going to find them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I get it. Like, it makes sense.
I realized in our new layout, I wonder if there's a way to mirror my image.
Yeah, why?
I don't know. I look like I'm talking like away from you.
Yeah. I'm sure, like, because I'm usually looking at this screen. I personally probably look like I'm talking away from you a lot, but on our screen, I'm always looking in that direction because I'm mirrored for me the way Discord does it.
Yeah, I'll have to figure out if I can mirror myself.
But anyway, welcome to the Vomitorium, everybody. Episode 133. As always, I'm your host, The Metal, and joining me is my co-host, Marsupial Gamer. How you doing today?
Great.
Yeah.
The sun set just as the show started. So.
I know. I saw like this line across your face before.
Yeah.
You
can still
makes
see
you
it
blinds
me,
a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm still here. I don't know if I've been doxxed or not, but.
Oh yeah, you want to laugh about that for like a hot minute at the beginning of the show? Or?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Not like it's hard. I mean, well, I guess it would be hard to get my current address and my
your current address and employer. Those would be hard.
Yeah.
But like your full name is fairly easily accessible, especially because like Also on your Twitter, you have your former, like, your game studio too, so it's pretty easy to grab your name from looking up that information.
I don't. No, I don't. I took that
Oh,
off.
you took it off? Okay. I remember it used to be there. Yeah.
Yeah. You know why I took that off? Because a crazy person on Twitter contacted my business partner one day, who is also my girlfriend.
Yeah, we've talked about that before, yeah.
And she wasn't pissed at me. She was pissed at the other person, but I was just like, yeah, okay. That's, I'm gonna separate that, especially since my game studio is currently on hiatus, shall we say?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I took that off. But it's not hard to find. I mean, I have a LinkedIn and all that stuff. Because frankly, I used to use Twitter. I used to have my real name on Twitter. I used to have a link to my game studio and my business partner and everything. Because I used to use it for business networking.
Yeah.
Before, when I was essentially self-employed, or I owned my own software consulting business a few years ago. But yeah, so for anyone who doesn't know, there is this we don't have to get too deep into the lore, but there's a thing called Comicsgate.
Yeah.
It's it's a comic book professionals and fan,
It was a fan
networking
movement
group or
first,
whatever.
and then the professionals came
Right.
in.
Yeah.
Consumer.
And there
I don't even
is
want to say
a-
fan. It was a consumer movement.
Consumer move.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. And there is one. I mean, there's plenty of crazy people involved, as there is in any big group. But there's one particular crazy person in Australia who has especially a recent, he has a kind of a long history of flagging, false flagging, in my opinion, people's YouTube channels, getting him taken down because they made fun of him or even talked about him. And he recently, his name's Liam Gray. I don't care. I'm not afraid of him.
That's fine. Fuck Liam.
And he recently flagged the Indiegogo, campaign, basically the business of another comic book creator, John De La Rose, and got his Indiegogo account completely shut down. So he theoretically couldn't make a living anymore, but he's since basically switched over to Kickstarter because that's all he can do. So he was doing, and this just happened like a couple of weeks ago. So Liam was doing a live stream as he does every day. I think it was a Saturday, maybe, or Friday. I think it was maybe it was. I think it was before our last show, but I didn't know what was going on. Where I popped in,
because
just
you
listened to
posted
him.
clips and stuff in like DMs, and I even put it on actual Twitter. People could see it. It was funny.
Yeah, but I just popped into his stream and I was listening to him, and he was talking about this stuff. If he was just talking about his own comic or whatever, I wouldn't have said a word. But he was talking about this stuff and saying how he, quote, was not a prick because something he doesn't attack other creators or whatever. And I'm like, bullshit. You just shut down someone else's means of making a living.
Yeah.
Like, and so I said sarcastically something like that, oh yeah, no, you just remove the ability of other creators to put food on their table. You're definitely not a prick. Whatever.
Oh no, he's
That's
not
all
a
I
prick.
said.
I've got stronger words for that.
Yeah. So that was all I said. And frankly, he was like behind on the chat.
Yeah.
So I listened for a few more minutes and he didn't get to it. So I was like, he's probably not even going to see my comment. So I just, went and did something else I didn't watch. I watched him for all of 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Come to find out, like 2 days later, on Kiwi Farms, somebody, Mr. Dong something or other, on Kiwi Farms, posted a description. I guess sometimes people put up like, almost like a transcript of live streams. And in part of the transcript, he said, "Oh yeah," and he threatened. He offered $1,000 reward for Marsupial Gamers docs. I'm like, what?
I'm just saying, like, could I use $1,000? Sure, but it's also Australian dollars, so that was like
Yeah.
$5 in American money.
Yeah. Somebody actually tagged me on Twitter. Like, I never would have known about it. But someone was like, "What's up with this bounty under your head?" I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, I'll check out the kiwi farms." So I looked at it. I was like, "What the fuck are you talking
Also, I have
about?"
to correct you on one thing. You started this out by saying some crazy Australian guy. You could have just said some Australian guy, because all Australians are inherently crazy. You should know from dating one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this guy's more like even worse. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's beyond
But it's just a
crazy.
given. If you're talking about Australians, they are crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this guy actually, I mean, I'm not a psychiatrist, but I think there's some serious diagnosable paranoid
I don't
schizophrenia.
need to be a psychiatrist to know there's something fucked up with that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, serious schizophrenia, like not even joking. But especially because definitely manic depressive, because he'll have live streams where he'll be way up here and then ones where he's way down here. It's crazy. But yeah, so I went and looked, and sure enough, he brought up my chat and he said it right away. And I clipped out the bit. And I wasn't even gonna post it. I wasn't sure if I should or not, but I posted it to Yellow Flash's Discord saying, "Check out this fucking moron." And then Yellow Flash posted it on Twitter.
Yeah.
He took my
funny.
clip and put it out there. So yeah, I got 15 more. So, and I was like, yeah, fucking moron. I ended up getting 15 more followers on Twitter from that in the course of 2 days. Something like 15 more subs on YouTube, thanks to that. I'm like, well, damn, I better make some videos.
Yeah. Or like you did earlier, point them over here since content's coming here anyway.
Yeah. What's funny is like the 15 new follower, and I seriously went from 1390 to 1405 in the span of 2 days, which is unheard of for my account.
Yeah.
But like those 15 people have been like the most
Active.
interactive. Yeah. Like every post, like if I post something random about something else, like I'll get like all these people who just recently followed me. So,
Nice.
it could end up being the best thing. Not that this is my career. I have to emphasize, I get occasional snarky idiots on YouTube saying, "Oh, your videos only get 50 views. You only have 200 subs." I'm
It's
like,
like, yeah, but I have
this
a day job.
yeah, this isn't my job, dude. This is like a hobby.
It's a fun thing to do on the
So-
side.
Yeah. But who knows? Maybe this will launch my YouTube career. Yes. Well, but one thing in the video, Liam said that he is absolutely certain that I live in Australia, and I want to confirm that in fact I live about a block from his house. I left a bag of poop on his porch the other day.
Yeah.
Definitely live in Australia.
I would say we should wire Risey some money to go leave a bag of poop on his porch, but he's like on the opposite side of the continent, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Yeah. What's funny is like that's one of the delusions that Liam has been under, is that he's sure that John Delarose hired somebody on Fiverr or something to actually leave a bag of poop on
That's
his porch.
funny.
And I don't necessarily doubt that it happened as far as somebody did that, but like it was a random kid in his neighborhood,
Yeah.
of course.
Well,
Nobody
especially
actually-
if you're as much of a prick as he is, you
Yeah.
think neighbor kids would want to do shit to you like that. Maybe egg your house, TP at
Yeah.
something. Dude is nuts. It's weird too. Like, well, it's not that weird that of all people you would attack, it's John Delarose. he'll tell you himself too. He's kind of an asshole, but he's a likable asshole. Like I get along with the guy, you know. I can understand why some people don't, but like, I don't know, he's cool. It's weird, but he's cool.
Mean, it's kind of this back and forth thing where, you know, Liam will do a live stream where he's yelling and screaming about JDA.
Yeah.
And then John will do a live stream essentially EFAPing or just, you know, watching Liam act like an idiot.
Yeah, you're just giving him content.
And laughing at him. And everyone keeps telling Liam, just stop talking about him. Talk about your own, you know, if you don't talk about him, he won't have anything to talk about you.
Yeah.
So, and JDA's like, and he said, you know, if Liam stopped acting like a fucking idiot, I would talk about something else. But he's like, frankly, he's like, I don't set out to do a video on Liam. He's like, somebody tags me or texts me or says, you know, hey, did you see the stupid ass thing that Liam said the other day? And that's how he gets his content. And he's like, yeah, I wouldn't have anything to talk about.
Yeah.
Well, he wouldn't have anything to talk about that. He would talk about something else. But yeah.
Anyway.
So yeah, apparently I have a bounty on my head.
Well, let's hope nobody comes to collect it. Or
Yeah.
specifically, let's hope your Australian girlfriend doesn't come to turn you in.
Yeah. Yeah. Follow up. Actually, somebody the other day on his live stream said, hey, is that offer for real about Marsupial Gamer? And he said, yes. And he said, oh, but I'm not going to dox him. I'm just going to sue him. And I'm like, what?
How? What? Why? On what grounds?
For what? I know. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Fine. So I guess somebody's going to send in my docs and then I'm going to get sued from Australia.
I don't
For
see
what?
how this connects on literally anything.
Yeah.
It's so funny that
Shit talking
I guess it probably doesn't help that you actually use the name Marsupial Gamer, which, you know, I think 100% of marsupials evolved and live on Australia outside of in captivity other places. So people just assume the connection there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Which I always insist has nothing to do whatsoever with the fact that I am dating an Aussie. Of course.
No, dingoes are cool. Like,
Yeah.
except koalas. Koalas can go fuck themselves. They're stupid creatures that evolved into stupidity, and we should just let them die. Let nature take its course.
Exactly. Wallabies, on the other hand, are cute.
Yeah, wallabies are cool. Wallabies are cool. Kangaroos are cool. Even the freaking echidnas and platypus, they're cool too. Platypus with their barbed freaking spike on the back, poison you. Just be like an MMA fighter coming with like an elbow, and the elbow poisons you, and you die shortly afterwards.
Well, it's better than an armadillo. They'll give you what's the disease that armadillos
Leprosy?
have? Leprosy. Yeah.
Yeah, armadillos carry leprosy.
For some reason.
Which, in general, we're fairly inoculated against. Like, you'd have to have large quantities for it to actually really take hold on your body. But still, why risk leprosy in general? That just would be a horrible thing to have.
Yeah, we started to see armadillos in Tennessee. They've actually come that far east.
That's weird.
Amazingly.
Like, I'm used to seeing them, but I'm in Texas, where you expect to see armadillos.
But welcome to GMT, Sketchbook, and Jiminy Cricket
Yeah.
in the chat.
Dude, I remember we were at a park in the middle of that. We weren't supposed to be there. It was like one of these big like hiking trail parks in the middle of like cities. It had to be like 20 acres or more. And we're there in the middle of the night. Gates closed. We parked down the street and just walked into the park. And two of the guys, overweight, hot, muggy summer Texas weather, so they took their shirts off. Just two fat guys walking around without their shirts on. See an armadillo, and they're just like running after it because they want to catch it. You can see like they're fucking fat bouncing around like a bowl full of jello. Oh, actually, talking about one of them was my former co-host, Chris. Right, chasing this thing, wetting up a storm, and they eventually just like stop, panting, because they couldn't catch the armadillo and they're out of shape. And then I'm just laughing, like, what are you gonna do when you catch up to the armadillo? It's not like a pet armadillo. It's not somebody's washing it or everything. Those things can carry leprosy. And they're like, what?
Yeah. I always saw him, squished on the pavement in Austin.
Yeah.
Speaking of Austin, you want another personal story?
Sure, why not?
Oh my God, dude. We had a mandatory diversity, diversity, equity, and inclusion seminar at work today.
I prefer putting the inclusion before the equity because then it spells die.
Yeah. Diversity, inclusion, and equity. And it was run by a former defense attorney who lives in Austin, Texas. And it was as bad. It was like a stroll through the most inane parts of Twitter. She actually used fucking memes that people make fun of in this PowerPoint, like the one where the people are looking at the baseball field from behind a fence. Oh my God, she talked about the importance of intersectionality. I was like, oh my God, seriously, I couldn't believe it. Like, how is this real? This can't be real.
I don't know, man.
It was like the most cliche, like, shit we make fun of every day. It's like, how is this real?
And then, honestly, the sad part is this shit's been going on since the 90s, but it was in pockets back then, right? It started when like feminist movements brought in that whole intersectionality thing, and it's just been slowly creeping in, making its way into universities, and then eventually come around the turn of like 2010s, it seeped into like all of our media, gaming specifically. That's why like Gamergate pops up. People think it's just about the whole journalism. Like, no, that was the thing that spun it out, but then people noticed what else was going on in the background after that started. And that's also why Comicsgate started up, because it's been in the comics for that long. All these different things is just like this bullshit that's been springing up for decades finally came to the public surface. They're like, no, we got to nip this shit in the bud now. And now it's everywhere. It was
but
lost battles, but not necessarily a lost war.
Yeah, we need to rename this Diversity, Inclusion, Caring, and Kindness. It was a DICK seminar. Yeah, definitely.
Oh, that's the thing I hate the most about it too, is that it's under the guise of caring and kindness, and like, no, politeness. Sure, there's a form of politeness, like that's where something is politically correct. You're polite, the politique, right? But there's nothing kind about what anybody's doing to each other here.
Well, and the most telling part of the whole talk, she says her entire life she feels like has been like strife and arguments and things like that. She basically admits that she's a miserable, horrible person. Without saying that. But I was like, oh, okay, so you're saying that your entire life has just been just like, people butting head, that's you've chosen that, and now you're bringing that negativity to us. Like, why do we want this in our lives? I was like, that is terrible. Yeah. But the good thing is, what's funny is after that, I had a one-on-one meeting with my supervisor, which I have every month. It just happened to be today. And we kind of confirmed to each other that, like, none of this applies to our team. Like our team are like very professional, serious adults who just don't give a shit about any of this.
Yeah.
Who just want to get the job done.
No, that's why it applies to you, because you just don't give a shit about any of this.
I know.
That's all they care about. It's conquest. You have to give a shit about it.
Well, we're not going to. Like, I
Yeah.
can tell. I mean, even yesterday, one of my colleagues said, "Oh, this is the what do you call it? He actually said this in a meeting. Said it's the don't say N-word class."
Yeah.
And everyone was like, "I can't believe you just said that."
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like we go in, we talk to each other professionally. We're all adults. We get the job done. I've never had a problem, like a personal problem with anyone. It's like none of this applies to us. So whatever. I feel bad for other parts of the company though.
Yeah, I agree
deal
with
with
Gameotron, but it's not just personnel to human resources. It's all of that euphemisms and politically correct terminology. But let's rewind it even back further than personnel. Let's just go back to calling it the complaint department. We need to be more brash about things, just straightforward of what things mean. Fuck it, you know? Euphemisms.
But, I mean,
George
she actually-
Carlin had entire fucking rants on euphemisms.
She actually said straight out, like, you know, our goal is not equality, it's equity. And, you know, certain people, because of their innate characteristics, need more support than others and all this bullshit. I'm like, God damn it. Whatever. It's bullshit.
You know what else is bullshit?
You talk for a while.
Yeah. So let's talk about some mostly positive things. You know, let's turn the corner a bit. Nintendo Switch finally added folders. Finally.
Yeah.
Even though it's been in sort of. Yeah, not fully. It's been in the code forever because the Switch's OS is literally just in a modified version of the 3DS. So like technically themes are in it, but the only ones they give you is the day mode and night mode theme. And even with the folders, and they've got the worst reason for why it's only in this place that it is. The folders only exist in your extended library tab. It doesn't exist on the main screen. Because the main screen is technically a theme overview that only shows your most recent games and the one that you're currently have inside like your system. The extended game view is basically the default like 3DS menu that you had before. So that's where the folders are. Oh man, I'm sneezy. Luckily, you guys don't have to hear it, but
Good job on the mute button.
yeah, my hand's sitting there ready. But yeah, so like the folders only exist there. They could have made it to where they exist on the main screen because they could just give you something similar to the 3DS's home view, which is what the extended game view basically is your home view. But that's not what they want to be there. I don't know what's up with them with this. Like, I think it's simplistic. It's clean. They just want that single line of your most recent games. It's the way they want it to look. It's the same reason why they haven't implemented themes. Because if they did, the way it currently is, you might have like a color associated with the theme on the main screen, but you really only see your theme on literally every other screen. Like if you go to your extended game library and stuff like that, then you would see a theme there, but you wouldn't see it on the main screen. I don't know what's up with that. Personally, I would disable the main screen in favor of the game library with just the bars at the bottom for like news and all that shit. I want it to look more like the 3DS.
Yeah, I'd give that option at least, because the folder screen, which what do they call it, labels or whatever, they're essentially folders, but you can put a game in multiple different folders.
Yeah, because
right?
they use a tab feature, which is actually better than what was in the 3DS, because something could only exist in one folder at a time.
Right. But yeah, it's very clean looking. It shows like 3 in each folder, but with a title. I saw somebody, what's her name? Blue Williams, I think her name is, on Twitter, who had a brilliant way to do it. She separated them out into games completed, games started but not completed, and games not started.
Yeah, that's pretty good, especially if your library starts racking up.
Yeah. I was like, oh, that's one way to do it. But yeah, I did like, Zelda games and Shantae games and Dragon Quest.
Oh yeah, I need to do that.
Classic.
Because you can put it in multiple folders. Like I'm probably gonna have like a bunch of labels, and I'll have it for like franchise, but I'll also have it for like developer, so like Square Enix games in general, because I have a lot of those. But then maybe like sports games or multiplayer games, so if I can just open up and see which ones I want to play with people. Like I'll go label crazy because I am very like anal when it comes to like organizing libraries and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's really cool that you can put them in multiple different places. So yeah, you can.
I mean, shoot,
Square
because of
Enix.
that, I might do like a started, finished, completed like thing there.
Yeah. Games I haven't played in so long, I probably should start over.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Like, man, but it's cool. So it's actually group is the name of the feature.
There you go.
Yeah. You put it in groups. And that patch also allowed you to change Bluetooth audio volume more easily. They changed the behavior of how it was. Minor thing, but it's one that works better. I guess if you have a Bluetooth headphones, it really doesn't matter for the headset though, because you still can't talk to people outside of the Nintendo Switch app on your phone. I get it. It's for children's safety, as if most kids don't have phones these days. Maybe in Japan that's still the case, despite the fact that like mobile is how they do everything. But here, somehow even like poor families, maybe through a payment plan, manage to get their kids phones. Even I don't think anyone under the age of 14 should have a phone, and before the age of 18, it should be like a burner phone. Like, here's your emergency phone for calling home. Maybe you could text your friends.
Yeah. I think it's a liability thing. I think it's just like, okay, well, if something bad's going to happen with a kid on the phone,
The parents.
let it be somebody else's problem.
Yeah.
We don't want to do it. We don't want it to happen over our hardware or whatever.
Yeah, that's the problem though, right? Because they still have the... It used to be that if you bought something like that, part of like the end user license agreement was that anything that happens at home is on the parent's responsibility. And to put further on it, everything on the eShop has to be rated anyway, right? Like you can't have anything on there that isn't properly rated on the ratings boards that we have in our different regions.
Yeah. I don't know, or maybe is there a physical limitation? I mean,
maybe. I really don't know. I
maybe
mean,
the
it's
Wi-Fi
fully
can handle.
Bluetooth accessible. That might also be a problem. The Wi-Fi in this Switch sucks.
Yeah.
Like, it is crap.
Yeah, I've noticed actually. Well, like when I'm out on the port, like there was somewhere in my house where I could not get my Switch to connect to my Wi-Fi, and I was like, it's not that far,
Yeah.
and my laptop's connected just fine, and it's
We should try sometime. I keep forgetting I'm in a place with better internet and Wi-Fi than before. We should
Animal
try that
Crossing.
thing. Yes. Yeah, we should try that.
yeah.
Not right
I'll
now
do
because
it.
we're already set up in the middle of the show, but
Yeah.
that'd be fun.
To open up Animal Crossing for the first time in like a year.
Yeah. Well, like, dude, my town is barren, just absolutely barren, because I've not progressed. Part of it was me trying to keep that stupid bitch Isabel out of my town. The house is still set up though because I was able to carry the whole house over from the other island, but now that like all the DLC and shit out, everything that was added to the game is locked behind you having a 3-star island where KK Slider has visited. So you can't even do that without the services center. It's like, fuck, if I want to even try the rest of the game, I have to go and do that. And I've been pushing it off because I have like this shopping list of things I have to complete to even get those houses finished so I can have more villagers in my town. And it's like, why do you do this to me? Why?
I just care. As long as I can keep Shari out. I don't know why. I just despise Shari.
Yeah. Yeah, but at least you have the option of that because you can always kick villagers out if they come into your town. I can't kick Isabel out when she comes to my town.
What's wrong with Isabel? She's so cute.
Fuck Isabel. And you know what? What's even worse than that? They bring back the Happy Home Academy and everything, and fucking Digby's still left out of the game. One character they don't fucking bring back after bringing back all the other characters. Like, see how it is.
MD says, does the Switch have a Game Boy wire? I
No.
don't think so. Although, wait a minute.
It's Type C
you can
USB,
hardwire.
though. Yeah.
You can hardwire your dock to
Yeah, there's
Ethernet.
this old LAN adapter for the Wii that they've been because of demand with the Wii U, they started putting it back into production, and you can still use it for the Switch. So there's a USB to Ethernet connection that Nintendo makes first party. You don't even have to. You can get a third party. Some of the third party ones I hear are better, but you can get a first party Nintendo LAN connector. But it only works when you're docked, right? Now I'm sure somebody probably has, for some reason, a Type C to Ethernet that you could plug into the bottom, but that's only going to be third party. Or
Bless you.
or there is a really cool dock that has a GameCube adapter built into the dock itself, and I believe it has a Ethernet adapter in the back of it, so you could just like put it down on your desk in front of you, use a controller, and play the game, and it just is wired in.
So there's really no excuse for why they can't have voice over the Switch, to me, as far as I know.
Yeah, because like, what's it gonna matter? You're gonna be playing your fucking Switch on McDonald's Wi-Fi? Really?
Yeah.
Like,
GMD says nice ADR. Is she referring to my microphone? What is ADR?
ADRs, that's like voiceover shit. That's yeah. And just
Sound like
audio.
ASMR?
No. No.
You want me to lick my microphone?
It's an audio dialogue replacement, right? So like, if you're doing a dub, you're doing ADR.
Oh. Maybe she was referring to when I said bless you when you sneezed.
Yeah, you voiced over my sneeze. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, I got this new microphone. So pretty. It's not shaped like an ear, unfortunately, so I can't I can't do my Amaranth ASMR streams yet. But soon.
Yeah, and like, I don't know, like the Switch doesn't actually have that many physical limitations. The limitations are just like it can't do super like graphic stuff, you know, like or like you can't push the physics engine while also trying to get clean graphics. But like it can do most things a phone could do as far as like physics. And if a phone can handle Bluetooth with a headset to talk to people, which it clearly can. I mean, people do that for calls, but also you can use the Switch app. The Switch would also be able to handle that while playing games. I can run Discord in the background while playing a phone game and still talk to somebody on my phone.
Yeah, I don't know. It must be what we said, that they just
It's a liability.
they feel there's
thing,
some
I'm sure.
Yeah, liability. Yeah.
Because kids play Splatoon. That's like the first game that they made the voiceover for was Splatoon 2. And that's why they put this app up. Like, yeah, because kids play Splatoon. They don't want kids randomly talking to adults.
Yeah.
So I like somebody also. Well, somebody doesn't have to be on your friends list in some of the games. For Splatoon specifically, you can only talk to people like in pre-made parties. But in what's it called? Animal Crossing, you can actually have a voice chat with anybody who's in your town. But that's because the town is already considered a private thing. Like you need to either be a friend or to have a dodo code to get into a town as it is. So that just counts as a pre-made party anytime you're in there.
Right. What else is going on?
A lot of things going on. A lot of things. I'm just trying to figure out like which one looks good to talk about. Did you know that for some reason Xbox and like Sega or whatever are putting out fuzzy controllers?
Like physically fuzzy?
Yes, like they covered in like shag. They're basically like shag carpet controllers. I don't know why. They're the Xbox Series X controllers. Or it's a series for and a custom Series S console, which seems like a horrible idea. I hope that's also not covered in shag carpet. But they're a red and blue controller for Sonic and Knuckles that are covered in shag that you could do. And this is awful because like my hands, if I get intense gaming, a lot of times it doesn't happen. But if I'm playing something like Smash or whatever, and I'm really getting into it, my hands will start to get a little clammy, a little sweaty. And I would not want my hands to be wrapped around shag carpeting that's going to get matted while I'm playing a game.
Well, it does sound comfortable, I suppose. I mean,
yeah, if you're playing something
you're
casual,
not-
if you're like Minecrafting, right, and you're zooming around in Minecraft, sure. Especially in the winter months, having a shag controller might not be that bad. Keep your hands warm. But like, I don't know, if you're playing fucking Call of Duty and you're like quick flips, quick flick of the wrist, hopping around, no scoping people, and your hands start getting kind of sweaty because you've been playing for so long intently, and now your fucking controller's all matted and gross because of your hand sweat is getting into the shag. As opposed to a normal plastic controller where you could just take like a wipe to it and get your like skin and sweat off the controller. Like this just sounds like, how are you going to properly clean this?
Yeah. GMT says, don't forget to brush your controller before you go to bed.
Yeah, it just sounds awful. Like, put it on display. If you win this because it's a sweepstakes, put it on display. Don't ever actually use this fucking controller. But it is a sweepstakes that you can enter, and anybody can win it. I'm thinking of possibly entering it myself. Not that I would ever play the system because I have literally no desire to play in the Xbox, but I'd have one just in case for like any reason. But I would have to go out and buy another controller or plug literally anything else in because I would not want to play it with this fucking shag controller.
Maybe it's just for decoration or something. I don't know.
Maybe. I have no clue. It's ridiculous. You know what I want my controllers to look like? I want my controllers to look like this, okay? This is all I fucking care about. This is all I need,
Nice.
okay? This is what controllers... For people listening, this is a Power A GameCube controller. Wired. Wire comes out for portability or whatever, but... wired controller. I could plug it into almost anything. I bet a Series X or S actually would take this controller because it has all the required buttons you need for anything. And Microsoft's pretty good at accepting controllers.
It has a little Switch logo on it, too.
It does, yeah. Because PowerA makes it specifically for the Switch. Obviously, any other system would probably pick these buttons up for anything, but it's got like a screen, like a share and a home button as well, plus or minus.
Now, it doesn't have enough buttons to act as a N64 controller, though, right?
No, not. I guess not technically. It's got enough to be a Pro controller, so anything the Pro controller has, it can do.
I need to get an N64 controller.
Yeah.
for my Switch.
I mean, I believe the C stick works for the C buttons, but obviously there's the detection problem that you have with any time trying to use a stick for buttons.
Right. Yeah, you need like 3 different C or 4 C buttons.
Well, I mean, I guess you could map it to work, right? Because realistically, so it's got enough buttons if you remap it, right? It's got A and B for A and B, right?
Yeah.
It has L and R.
Following.
Right? Which is the only 2 you actually need, because at no point do you ever use Z and L at the same time on the 64. So you'd have to remap it per game, but you could just keep switching the L and Z map depending on what game you have. So if that's the case, then you've got X, Y, and then the top L and R bumpers, and that's all 4 of your C sticks. There are enough buttons to play a 64 game. It would just be frustrating because of the nature of how they do their L and Z.
Yeah, yeah. I want to see these files. Is it Sonic controller?
Yeah, here, actually, I'll pull it up on the screen. I've got one up in front of me. Where is window capture? So people watching can see it. Yeah, I've got the console behind too. The console actually looks kind of cool because it's got Sonic and Knuckles clashing, like a skin on the decal below it. But then like there's this big golden ring, like a Sonic ring, around like the main part of the console.
You can barely see the buttons on that.
I know, they fade right into the shag.
Oh my god, that looks terrible.
In fact, they look more like Austin Power controllers than anything.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that thing should work with Steam. I know my controller works with Steam. My controller is a USB controller, so I could use it like for anything on my computer. But I don't know.
Furry controllers.
Furry controller. That's why they want it. I guess it's not that weird of an overlap, but obviously there's a huge overlap between hardcore Sonic fans and furries. For people who I guess their gateway drug wasn't Disney's Robin Hood, Sonic was the gateway drug into furries for some people. Not everybody who likes Sonic, though, because I know a lot of people who like Sonic the Hedgehog who are completely detesting of furries, but there is a large overlap.
Yeah, DMT says they look like that. They look like that one Muppet. Not sure which Muppet, but
I don't know. There's a lot of furry Muppets.
Yeah. They do look like a Muppet.
Yeah. Again, I don't know what's up with these type of things. Apparently, it was Xbox's idea. And as far as I know, actually, scrolling down, I don't know how much Sega had to do with this. Obviously, they have to license it out. But the sweepstakes actually said it was between Microsoft and the movie studio. I don't want to feel fuzz in my hands. Okay. I really don't want to feel fuzz in my hands for Shozo. Like that's not my goal at all. Even the description says it represents the bristly texture of real-world hedgehogs. So it's more bristly than an actual shag carpet. I don't want bristle in my hand. Like I'm feeling a boar underneath me. No, thank you. Boars belong in my stomach. That's the only place they belong.
Yeah.
Yep. Another cool thing, Ocarina of Time fan-made PC port is finally out with HD graphics, widescreen support, and more. Guess what the caveat is?
I don't know.
It's not like the Mario PC port. So like the Mario PC port, there actually was a build of Mario 64 that was going to be on PC back in the day. And because that build existed, they were able to take a ROM of Mario and pull it through the whole thing to have a standalone executable of Mario, right? This one is not a standalone executable. It's basically an emulator because it does not have any of the Zelda files inside of it, just all of the HD support for it. Keyboard, controller support, modding, and all that stuff. You still need a Zelda 64, so an Ocarina of Time ROM, to make it work.
Yeah.
And, like, I get it, especially because, unlike the Mario one, this would stop you from a C and D, since technically you're not using any copyright files in it. You could literally just compile this into a standalone executable too, regardless. Like, it's not that hard. You could technically take any combination of an emulator or ROM and turn it into a standalone executable. That's just the nature of things. But they're like, no, you have to have legally obtained the ROM yourself, which basically means you're not legally allowed to use it for anything. But once it's in your hands, you can do whatever you want with it, even using an illegal ROM.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is stupid. Yeah.
Well,
It's called Ship of Harkidian for people interested in it. If you want to play Ocarina of Time in HD with mod support.
what's it called?
Ship of Harkidian, named after King Harkidian from the Zelda CDI games.
You getting a cold, man?
I've had a cold. I'm on the recovery meds. Well, I keep Kleenex over here. It was pretty bad the other day, but luckily I didn't have to stream the other day.
Yeah. Well, why would you want to do that why would you want to play on PC when you can play it on the Switch?
Well, I guarantee you it's probably less buggy on the PC.
Yeah.
Even though they've been fixing things. People are like, oh, it seems way better than it was. It's like, yeah, it is way better than it was. It still isn't up to par yet. It's not up to snuff.
Yeah. So it says it's going to support 60 frames per second, but I guess it doesn't yet. Or does it?
I don't think it does yet. They're still working on that. But it'll be patched. There'll be updates and stuff for it.
Yeah.
The list of many things players can look forward to in the future: text-to-speech, visual feedback, 60 frames per second, twin-stick camera controls, which would be cool to actually be able to use your second stick to turn around while playing the game. That was something they added in for the Mario port. Scripting systems, HD models, because they've already got like HD textures, but they're textures that are put onto the old polygon models of the game. HD audio, texture packs, and Linux and Mac support. Because fans are doing more for Nintendo's games than Nintendo is.
Did you mention the scripting system so people can
I put scripting system.
Potentially mod it, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's already got mod support, but in a very basic function. Obviously, a scripting system would fully open mod support in every direction.
Yeah. Now, people have already modded. I mean, I've seen like
ROMs that are modded,
yeah. I've seen full-fledged brand new games basically built on top of Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
Where it's just like a whole new game. So.
Yeah, well, in this case, though, since it is already basically, it's an emulator, so it's an engine, right? Since it's an engine that already plays it in HD, you want to make sure that there's a scripting system in place so any mods put into it functions with the engine.
Yeah.
As opposed to stuff that have existed before. Obviously, they're working with the original version of Zelda in some type of software emulator for the N64.
Well,
yeah.
Speaking of things like this, I don't know what you call this, ports or whatever.
Yeah.
Another project has been released to 1.0 version.
Oh.
And that is a project called XU4,
XU4.
which is basically an update to Ultima 4, or
Okay.
a skin for Ultima 4, I guess, that lets you run it in modern Windows.
Does
Linux,
the X
and
stand
Mac.
for extreme? Because if it doesn't, I'm going to be disappointed.
I don't know.
It'll
Well,
be my
what's
headcanon.
disappointing? What's disappointing about it is it's basically the same, and again, it uses the original game. Although Ultima 4 is basically freeware at this point,
Oh, yeah.
because the source code got released years and years ago. So it's basically they call it a remake, but it's basically the same with slightly updated graphics.
Yeah.
And it was just released a few days ago. But I was having a discussion with somebody else on Twitter about this and other games in the Ultima series, and we were kind of lamenting the fact that virtually none, except for a couple here and there, virtually none of the Ultima series games have been remade. And it's a shame.
Do you know it'd be a fun challenge?
What's that?
Because the source code's out there, a fun challenge would be making a better version for Quest of Avatar for the NES.
Well, the DOS source code is out there.
Yeah. No. Like, so using that to try to make a more accurate version of Ultima 4 for the NES. Because obviously they tried, but there were limitations and maybe even stuff they didn't know yet because it was still earlier on. People know way more about how to cram things into the NES now than they did back then.
Yeah.
It'd be
And you
like
put
something
more-
somebody would just do as a hobby. Like, now that we know more, could I do a better job than they did back then?
Yeah. Well, frankly, the NES, in my opinion, the NES version of Ultima 3 was far better than the DOS version.
Yes, but like critically slammed 4 was worse than the DOS version. Yeah.
Yeah, not too much worse. It started to go downhill from there.
Yeah.
It was like Ultima 5, 6, and 7. The console versions just kept getting worse and worse and worse, while the original versions kept getting better and better.
Yeah.
I've seen people do runs of Ultima 7 on the SNES. Like, oh my God, it's a completely different game. It's horrible.
Yeah, that was the problem too, is that the further it got, and this is why it starts with 4, is that they start spreading off as it's like almost a completely different franchise that shares the same name, but that's it. And that's why like all the console versions have like some type of sub name, like a subtitle to it, because they kind of realize that it's a different game than what you're playing on the computer.
Yeah. Yeah, it's horrible. I've subscribed to a couple of Ultima streamers on Twitch that almost all exclusively do Ultima. And I mean, there's these other games, these Runes of Virtue games.
Yeah.
They're awful too. They're console games. It's like, oh my God, like Ultima on consoles, other than Ultima 3, they're absolutely horrific.
Yeah, and I've actually, so I only played some of the earlier versions of Ultima on computer later on, right? Like if I had to use like DOS emulation, stuff like that. Because when I played them, they were all console copies. So I had like no idea what the actual versions of some of these games played like until like later on in my life.
Yeah.
Even though like I did a lot of PC gaming, I just never owned a copy of Ultima, even the later ones that you could get on CD. It was like, no, it was just I had it on console. That's how I played it.
But other than Lazarus, there was a project called the Lazarus Project, where they remade Ultima 5 from scratch in the Dungeon Siege engine years
Yeah,
ago.
you told me about it. I've wanted to play that because I love Dungeon Siege. I actually think it's a great engine, as simplistic and old as it is.
But that's the only remake attempt, really. The only other like remakes, like there's something called Exalt, which is essentially just a skin that lets you play Ultima 7 on Windows.
Oh,
Without DOSBox. And then this one is a skin that lets you play Ultima 4 on Windows. But it's exactly the same as is. It's not really
as long as you get the experience, that's all that matters.
Yeah, but I'd love to see remakes.
Yeah. No, actually, so the Lazarus, because we've talked about this like once or twice before, but I don't think I've ever asked this question. Since it runs in Dungeon Siege, right? It actually uses the Dungeon Siege engine to run it. Is it a multiplayer game, or does it only have the traditional single player experience? Because Dungeon Siege is a 4-player game.
Yeah, I don't think you can play multiplayer.
Because that would
In fact,
kind of
I'm not
break the
even-
balance of the game, obviously. But it would be interesting to run kind of like a pseudo remake of Ultima with more than one person.
Yeah, I mean, their website's still up. It's u5lazarus.com. I don't even know how they handle party. Like, I don't know if you can get a party or not.
Yeah.
Because in Ultima 5, you could get 6 people in a party. So I don't know if you can still do that. So I never actually played it. You have to own Dungeon Siege.
Yeah, I own Dungeon Siege. I should probably download it. It's a small game, too, because how old Dungeon Siege is. It's like really small.
Yeah, it looks
great. If you want a like an actual explorative D&D experience with your friends, Dungeon Siege will give you that type of like tabletop experience in a video game form. I actually think it does it the best. Like, it's better than Diablo was kind of trying to do that, but it just becomes more of just a dungeon crawler than anything.
Yeah.
But like Dungeon Siege, I think does a better job at that tabletop version of the experience, where talking to NPCs is a really big part of the game, going on quests for people and stuff like that. And it's still a dungeon crawler, but in the way you expect from a tabletop game. But you're still running around in real time and stuff like that. And you can do it with a full party of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The last update to Lazarus was 2006, so it's been a while.
Because it would be really cool, like, if that was how the party feature was handled, is you just have to, like, LAN up with somebody else, and they just come in and take over that person.
Yeah. That'd be cool.
Because I think realistically, Dungeon Siege's engine, like the system it's built in, can handle up to 8 people, but the parties were like only 4. Which is very like typical when you build like a game engine or something, and a lot of older games like that, everybody built the engine for the game when they made it. This is kind of before like Unreal became the standard for everything and stuff like that. You would kind of want the capacity to be higher than your actual limit. So there's like room for overflow. Make sure like the system runs as stable as possible. Oh boy, I wish overflow was taken into account in a lot of older games, especially Game Boy games. Man, I was talking to somebody about Pokemon and how in Gen 1 there was an overflow problem and they didn't think about it. So they didn't put like an actual hard stop on like power-ups and power-downs in the move. So if you used accuracy up like 6 times, the 7th time that you use it, it would overflow down to the bottom, so it would be the -6 position instead, or vice versa. If you accuracy down somebody 6 times, the 7th time would move it up to the top, because they didn't actually put like some type of hard stop on either end of it. It just cycled due to overflow. And you could accidentally make your opponent super fucking strong because you weren't paying attention to how many times you debuffed them. Fuck it. Like, I get it, you know, these systems, they're new for people at the time because earlier games, but come on, you gotta have enough experience to understand the type of problems that might come up from this shit. Like, you think hard about it, critically think.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like there was a bug in was it Ultima 3 maybe, where because you raise your attributes by going to a shrine or something like that, and
Yeah.
you did it too many times, it would roll back over to 0.
Yeah. It was just like, why not just put like a hard stop in there, right? Just like it can't go any higher than this. This is the highest it can go. The same the other direction. It can't go any lower than this.
Yeah. You know. it was usually like one person doing the programming. and
Yeah.
they just
And I'm sure it's usually like one line of code would have fixed the problem if it was put in there.
yeah, they just they were up against a deadline or something and just forgot.
Well, speaking of deadlines, The Witcher 4 was announced, and the company CD Projekt Red has promised, like just clearly, that there will be no crunch with The Witcher 4, which I don't believe. There might be no mandatory crunch, but the way that this culture is, there will be people probably crunching themselves, and people are going to be pressing them. I think, though, I don't know. Nintendo's been setting a pretty good role, like being a role model, good influence on the industry, where they've been pushing back some games too, and people have still been buying. Like Animal Crossing did good regardless of being pushed back. That maybe some of these other bigger companies will start looking like, well, if people are going to buy the game anyway, we might as well push it back a month or two, just to give people some breather room. So maybe I don't know. I have a hard time believing this shit.
See, I understand that crunch in today's game industry is different from what it was in the 80s and 90s, because when I grew up, I heard about, or you basically they admitted to crunch in like the credits of a lot of like Ultima games, for instance. They would basically talk about in the credits, they would like thank their wives and significant others for putting up with long nights and all that kind of stuff. Like they actually said that in the credits. But back then, as I've kind of evolved about this kind of issue. Back then, you have to realize that number one, the teams were much smaller, and I'm pretty sure there was essentially profit sharing throughout the team.
Yeah. So if they didn't make the deadline, they probably just weren't making money, which would have wasted like all of the effort that they spent on that year or two.
Or, I don't know that they even had deadlines necessarily for some of these games.
Well,
but
they would set their own
is,
deadline, right? Because like you can only spend so many hours making something before it's not profitable anymore.
Yeah, but my point was basically once they released the game, if it was, number one, they had fewer or no opportunities for patching, right? So typically they had to release as bug-free and perfect of a game as they could. But secondly, once they released the game, literally every person on the team was now a millionaire, right? Yeah. Is my point. Like everyone who worked on Ultima 6, for instance, or 7, because it was such a small team, and I'm pretty sure they had basically profit sharing, is that they all became millionaires, practically overnight.
Oh, yeah, because with the cost of the game, even if you're, I don't know about millionaires overnight, but it's something that could accumulate over a couple titles or whatever. But if a game sells like 100,000 copies, which was still a big deal back then if you sold even close to that, then you multiply that by the actual revenue of the game, and then figure out what the net that everybody's splitting, you could easily be in the upper thousands, hundred thousands of dollars in a small team. Yeah,
you'd be rich basically. Yeah. And so I think everybody understood that and they weren't really pressured into it. They gladly volunteered to work on this labor of love that they knew was going to be a big hit. And then once it's a big hit, they earned, every cent that they made and everything.
Well, that's why I like to distinguish between personal crunch and mandatory crunch.
Yeah. Yeah. And today it's like, well, if you're a programmer, one of 1,000 or more at a AAA studio, making The Witcher 4, it's like, if you put in 20, you put in 80-hour weeks for 6 months, maybe you'll get a little bonus or a raise or whatever, but you're not going to be a millionaire. So it's like,
yeah.
That's
why I want to distinguish between like indie companies and these big AAA industries, because like Nintendo sets a good standard on how it treats its employees. It may be bad to consumers sometimes, but like it treats the employees very well. Everybody always talks very positively. If there is some level of crunch, like you see Sakurai there, it's like a very personal thing, almost like a Bushido thing. And it's often the directors are putting in their own time so that the people underneath them don't have to crunch. Like Sakurai almost sends himself to the hospital. It's not cool, dude. Take a break. He actually did send himself to the hospital during Smash 4. And it's like, seriously, dude, take a fucking break. Yeah. But like that's he comes from that older culture, like when HAL was a small company that worked with Nintendo, as opposed to like these people aren't making shit. They're getting a steady salary. This game is going to make money anyway. They have the advertising. It doesn't matter if it comes out late. They're still going to push it. Maybe revenue will go down a tiny bit, but these guys are getting paid the same amount no matter how long it takes. The company pushes crunch because they only want to pay these people so much, because the more man hours they put into this game means like, well, then we can't get you into your like week or two break to move you on to the next game, because that's going to prolong that, and it is cutting into our pockets the longer you work on this game, and that's where the destructive aspect comes into.
And they're probably being professional programmers, they're probably on salary, so if they work 40 hours or 60 or 80, they're making the same amount. You know, like I said, they might get a bonus, but it's probably not going to be worth it.
Yeah, nothing changes for them, really. It's all like the pockets of who's paying them that it changes, and that's why they're the one forcing the crunch.
And unfortunately, this mentality of we got to crunch, get this out, I think came from the 80s and 90s, where basically almost everyone was an indie, essentially. And so they've kind of...
I'm not sure, though. Right? Because obviously back then people were always doing it, but you see that in any like garage company, it's like it's all of our sweat. We got to get it out. Yeah. And even if you don't have a hard deadline, it's like, well, you can only work on a game for so long, or anything for so long, until it starts to cut into whether it was worth to make it or not, right? Like you can only spend so much time on any project. But like we actually see crunch culture kind of comes from Sony. We see they were the ones that kind of brought what you would call crunch culture into video games, which they kind of took from looking at like the assembly line of Toyota and stuff like that. And it's because of them that you start seeing people like forcing these 80-hour week like schedules and stuff onto people.
But I think it was really prevalent and is prevalent in sort of the startup.
Oh no, it is. But the thing is, like, culturally it's a different thing, right? Like we have to separate the two types of crunch. Right. Yeah. Because what Sony started and that the rest of the industry does is very different than you personally deciding I need to get this code out versus I might be fired if I don't do what my boss says.
Yeah.
Right. And it can look similar, but I don't even think it comes from the same place. It's what's that term? Convergent evolution, where two things kind of like evolve wings, even though like mammals and birds evolved wings separately from each other. They both fly, but it's not like bats started flying because birds were flying, you know?
Yeah. I hear you. So yeah, I mean, I think it's good. I mean, like I said, like you said,
yeah.
I don't know if I believe them, but you know, if it's true and they don't have crunch, that's a good thing. On the other hand,
it's really like inexcusable for these companies that are big enough.
Yeah.
You know.
On the other hand, you know, in a startup, I don't think it's out of the question, especially if it's a small group of people who are basically all going to end up pretty wealthy.
Yeah. But even now, it's less mandatory, right? Because we can patch things. You still want your product to be as clean as you can at the start, but not being able to afford beta testers, so it might be like your friends, maybe some of the people in the team are the ones testing the stuff. Or you do like this active development early access thing now where you can actually have people buying into it to pay for it. Like you have some options.
That helps.
Yeah. I actually like early access in that way. It's like if you want to pay to be a beta tester and get to play the game early, it's perfectly fine. I have no problem with that. If it takes pressure off of the development team, it's like, hey, this also means we have some money for living while we're making the game. That's great. with all for that. That can relieve the crunch as well. Anything that basically releases the pressure valve just a little bit, lets some steam out of there. Perfectly fine. Let's go with that. It's not as necessary as it used to be because we can patch things through.
Yeah.
I dealt with crunch recently, out of personal reasons, which it's perfectly fine, right? Like I can actually relate to this very minorly, very minor experience. I wouldn't even say it's close to what like a full development team is doing. But I worked on a game recently, as you know, just like little quick month-long project, a short little visual novel that we did for Valentine's Day. We had from when Valentine's Day hit to when White Day hit to work on the project. We had to release it on White Day. For people who don't know, White Day is Japan's follow-up day to Valentine's Day. On Valentine's, guys give chocolates to the girls they like. On White Day, girls return chocolates to the guys they like, as kind of like a honestly, it kind of works like Tinder, right? Like guys just go and they swipe everything. Like you're like sending out as many things as possible and you're seeing which one gets returned to you. Japan's been doing that forever. Month, you get to really sit on it too. Like you get to think for a month, who do I actually want to give chocolates back to? And that's what we were doing. We were making a game in that time span. It didn't have to be a game. Could have been in animation. We kind of baited ourselves into a game because we had a programmer on our team, and we made this short little game called Interstice Academy. It's very, I call it esoteric. I don't know if you ended up playing it, but it's weird. As far as visual novels go, and I that's what I like about it. But I had to basically, in the last 2 or 3 days of us working on this, because a couple of the people should not have been writing in the first place. They picked up the role, but if I was told to write this route a week ago, it would have been healthier. But they waited till the last minute to get it done, and it was not up to snuff. And I had to rewrite a whole like 20-page route in like the very last second, fast enough that the programmer still had time to get the route into the game and line up all the sprites and everything like that. And it was like a rough last weekend, right before the game went out. So I kind of understand to an extent. Like I got a small little taste of it.
Yeah.
You guys should totally play it. It takes like very little time. You can speed run it. I don't recommend it because there's a lot of really funny stuff to read. I wrote like 2 routes of the game. It's called Interstice Academy. I wrote the molecular transmutator and the shadow spawn route. Plus I worked on a lot of shit on the game. Like I made some sound effects and stuff. There's these like little rings that sound like every time you hover over an option or you select it, it makes a ring. Like I did a lot of just like various shit. I was involved in making sure the art came out the right way, talking to the artists while they were working on it. That's why I have a production credit instead of just like a writing credit or anything like that.
Yeah, it's still on the front page of Newgrounds.
It is. Oh, dude, I was so happy. We were afraid it wasn't going to hit the front page compared to like the other teams involved, because the other 2 teams, technically there's 3, but the third was like a makeshift team of extras. People who signed up too late to make it onto a team. And they're like, well, we need some backups. And there was enough backups that they just formed their own team and did something. But compared to the other 2 teams that started up, we were afraid ours wasn't going to be that well received because we did something completely original. There was like no Newgrounds characters or anything in there, which is a very easy way to make it to the front page. It's like, oh, look, it's Pico. Ours was 100% original characters that we just like made up. Whole plot that we made up. And it was actually the number 1 liked out of all of them. It was top pick that day. It's like, yes!
So Standpie isn't the one who decides what goes on the front page?
No, he's not. Standpie doesn't actually have anything to do with the site itself. He just talked to Tom and wanted to throw the festivals. And Tom's like, yeah, sure, do it. You got my blessing. Other than this, Stan's just a user. He doesn't cite any of that shit, yeah.
So how does it, was it basically based on the score, the feedback from
so there's 2 things, right? There's the daily picks, which is a combination within the algorithm of best scored So something that's been viewed a lot and has a really high score, which we got #1 daily pick the day it came out. And the front page is curated by the staff. So like Tom Fulp himself and the other people in the office, which I think there's like 2 or 3 of them. I have no idea how big the staff is. Very few people. They curate the front page. We actually have this joke that Fulp sits on the shitter and with his phone, and he's actually like looking, like picking the front page stuff as he's taking a shit.
Trying to figure out how, like, it says it was favorited by 103 people. How do you favorite something? You just give it 5 stars?
No. In the top corner, there's a little heart, right? They're like these little icons at the top corner of anything. And there's a heart there. There's also like a playlist thing, so you can add it to a specific playlist, stuff like that. So if you heart it, it goes into your favorites.
Got it.
Yeah.
Still learning my way around Newgrounds.
Yeah, some of us have been there like genuinely ever, but it's a good place, especially for anyone who does any type of original creative project within the realms of animation, games, art, or audio. It's like, I think a lot of game devs should troll around there. Look at the forums, maybe put up small little demos of games. There's a lot of people, they just like, I've got a mechanic I want to work on. And then they'll pick like an artist or a writer. And it's like, hey, do you want to help me make something real quick that somebody can sit down for 30 minutes to an hour and play that can help me work on this mechanic?
Well, it's one of those sites where really super successful Kickstarters typically are born. Right.
Or super successful anything, right? Like one of the biggest Let's Play groups, Game Grumps, basically rolled off of Ego Raptor's career because he was already famous before they started it, and he was a super successful animator on Newgrounds back in the day, even if he throws it under the bus these days. Oni plays the same. Like Oni NG was a Newgrounds animator, still is technically. Occasionally he'll jump into a collab, but that's not really what he does anymore. The freaking Smiling Friends people all came from Newgrounds. This is basically just a conglomeration of Newgrounds animators and stuff.
Yeah, and you look at projects like Friday Night Funkin', which made millions on Kickstarter. That was born out of Newgrounds, obviously.
There's a gaming company that technically born out of Newgrounds, Behemoth, which is Tom Fulp's company with his partner Dan Paladin, and they put up a lot of their demos on Fulp's site early on. Like Alien Hominid started out as a game that you could play an arcade style of it all the way through on Newgrounds, and now there is not just a full game that released on Xbox and GameCube back in the day, a new version of Alien Hominid was supposed to come out a little bit ago, but it's had its closed beta. I played the beta for it, so like the new version is coming out soon enough. Yeah.
I have it on Steam.
They also did Castle Crashers. Super Meat Boy from Edmund McMillan started on Newgrounds. A little demo of it that you could play that was more vertical going up. It became more horizontal as the put the actual game. A lot of shit. You could go and just find it back in the day on Newgrounds. In fact, there's a really good Did You Know Gaming episode narrated by Jeff, aka Johnny Utah of Tankmen, that shows how Newgrounds has affected the gaming industry, and I highly suggest people go and watch that.
Mm-hmm.
And they should follow me on Newgrounds because do it. That's where I've been doing a lot of shit these days.
And follow who's the guy who I've been posting a lot of stuff to our Discord.
Pringus McDingus?
Yeah, he's
dude. I fucking love Pringus McDingus' shit. I've been following him for quite some time. Ever since he put up the Hi, I'm Daisy, where he took like this animated voice or this voice thing of Daisy from Strikers, because she has just like some of the best mannerisms out of any character, and he animated over it.
Yeah. And there's the one where she goes to she goes. She has to like. She goes like a meditation retreat.
Yes. That was a Looney Tunes show clip that he reanimated with Daisy and stuff. So it was actually Lola Bunny was the one who that was. Yeah. He said a couple times. There's also one where it was Lola and Bugs is on the side of the road and Lola's driving. So he reanimated it with Daisy was Lola and Luigi was Bugs. And she is like, oh, cool. I see somebody on the side of the road that looks just like you. Hold up real quick. And she almost runs him over and she's yelling, you look just like my boyfriend. And it's just a clip from the Looney Tunes show. Looney Tunes show was actually hilarious. I think that was one of those shows that was highly slept on. But yeah, he's done a couple animations of that. It touches Daisy a lot. Daisy is probably one of his favorite characters to animate. And that's, I think, why I started following Pringus, because I really like Daisy. But he does a lot of other funny shit too. I love his animations. There's a lot of good animators on Newgrounds, and I would rather watch their stuff on Newgrounds than YouTube, to be honest.
Yeah, I didn't realize that came from Looney Tunes, the one where he's like, you have to do a vow of silence, and she's like, can I just talk really quiet?
Yeah.
And then she goes, ah. She's like, I just had to get that out.
Yeah, I don't usually like it when like programs change characters, personalities, and stuff like that, which Looney Tunes show did do to Lola. But I'll have to say, I think she's a superior character in that show than she was before.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a fun show. I might actually go back and rewatch some Looney Tunes show. That show's crazy because the whole thing is like, it's Looney Tunes, but it's kind of like, you know how Mickey Mouse kind of started off in the same way that Looney Tunes did and stuff like that, where it was like a bunch of really one-off shorts with characters and stuff, but it didn't take place in any general location. It was just random around. But then later there were like Mickey Mouse cartoons where like Mickey lives in his building and everything's centered around like his friends living in town. That's the Looney Tunes show. Everybody actually lives like in the city and they're all neighbors with each other and they have to interact with each other. And it's just fucking wacky. Lola even has like really rich parents that don't necessarily approve of Bugs and stuff. Even like she's an adult, she shouldn't be living with her parents anyway. She's like she's actually a horrible person, and I think that's what makes her great because she's like the epitome of this stuck-up, spoiled kid. Even when she like gets her apartment or whatever, is I think her parents are still paying for it. And the reason she got her apartment is because she was trying to be a stylist or like a interior decorator, and she decorated an apartment for Speedy Gonzalez, who had to move out of Bug's house when his house got flooded because living in a mouse hole that got flooded first, and there's literally nowhere to live. And this house was definitely not set up for Speedy. It was stuff that Lola would like. It's like, maybe you should keep the apartment. And he ended up just moving back in at Bugs' house the second it wasn't flooded anymore. He could go back to his little mouse hole and stuff like that. It's a really, really awful person, but it's kind of endearing at the same time because you know so many people like that. And you kind of feel sympathetic for Bugs having to deal with this psychopathic girl.
What show was this exactly?
It was called The Looney Tunes Show. It was, I think, in the...
Is it in the 90s?
No. It was either late aughts or early 10s. Let me look when it... Yeah. I almost missed it because I think I went to college when it came out, so it might have been the early 10s.
At first, I thought we were talking about Tiny Toon Adventures.
I liked Tiny Toons Adventure. Yeah, it was 2011 and 2015. So I didn't even know it was a show until like years later, and I went back and watched it. Like, man, this show is actually hilarious. Tiny Toons was good too.
I probably didn't ever see it.
Yeah, probably not. I think I only found out about it because Buck was still always watching cartoons, right? Like he didn't leave home to go to college or anything, so he was just like still watching cartoons in between going to work and stuff. So I'd come over and hang out with him, and he would just have cartoons on, and that was like how I kind of stayed connected to what tunes were on at the time. And eventually I saw this show, I'm like, oh, this show's actually pretty funny.
Was it the Looney Tunes show?
Yeah, that was the name of it. The Looney Tunes Show from 2011 to 2015.
It looks like it's only on for 2 years.
I don't think it was on for straight. It might have been canceled for a little bit and then came back in 2014 to 15. Right, like it might have been 11 to 12, stop, 14 to 15.
Oh, okay. Well, it's on HBO Max, so I guess I can go watch it.
Yeah, it's a good show. It's really wacky, which is what I want for my cartoons, and that's all you need.
Yeah. I went back and rewatched what is it called? The Adventures of Superman, basically the Superman cartoon from the 90s.
Oh yeah. Sometimes just written, they'll cut off the adventures part, just like Superman with an exclamation mark, but it's supposed to be the Adventures of Superman with an exclamation mark. It is important that you have the exclamation mark. They're yelling it.
I guess, yeah. The one that came after the Batman animated.
Yeah. The whole like Timverse stuff with
it was good stuff. In fact, I thought it was better than the subsequent Justice League show.
Yeah, where it was different group of people. They were trying to make it the same as the Tim stuff, but it really wasn't.
But that's another good show on HBO Max.
Yeah, with Daly as the voice of Superman. Funny though, the guy who voiced Superman in Justice League after that is the same guy who voiced Sephiroth up until the recent remake.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
GMD wants to go watch Pinky and the Brain. Now I kind of want to watch that too.
Yeah, that's a good show.
One of my favorites.
Yeah. We are at the end.
Yep.
Thank you all for watching, listening, whatever later on. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with somebody else who might enjoy it. If you really like the show, even though we have fit our monthly hosting fees, consider giving a donation to streamlabs.com/Vomitorium Live. Every dollar helps, especially because, we're going to have hosting fees next month. Other things come up. It's just a helpful thing. And we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Bye-bye. See ya.